Yo, what is going on, everybody? We are back at it again with the week 7 rankings coming at you. Sorry I missed last week, just got kind of busy with some real life stuff, but we are back on the grind now. And obviously a ton has changed over the past 2 weeks. We also have a bunch of weird bye weeks going on now, so we're going to have the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Jets, the Titans, the Panthers, and the Texans. So that means no Joe Mixon, no Tony Pollard, no Breece Hall, no Derrick Henry, no Dameon Pierce, no Miles Sanders, and no Chuba Hubbard. So obviously none of those guys are going to be ranked here. Also doesn't seem like Kyren Williams is going to play this week, so his backup Zach Evans will be ranked here. I also do have Christian McCaffrey ranked here, but he's ranked a lot lower because he's questionable and we don't really know right now if he's going to be playing or not. My assumption is that he doesn't play, but that is just purely speculation on my part, and we won't know until Monday night, so that is a little unfortunate. So we're just going to have to wait and monitor that situation and kind of hear whatever we hear throughout the week. But now that housekeeping is out of the way, let's get into these rankings. All right, so first up, I'm going to have Kenneth Walker here. He is going up against Arizona this week, so an absolutely amazing matchup for running backs and a guy who has absolutely been dominating so far. I'm pretty sure he scored the past 4 weeks in a row, and with a great matchup like this, it's just going to be another week of domination, I think, for Kenneth Walker, so I got him here at my running back 1 this week. And then running back 2, I'm going to have Austin Eckler here, who came back off an injury this past week, had his first game back, did all right, didn't do anything too amazing, but we know who Austin Eckler is. We know what this offense is like. He's going to keep getting better, more integrated, more back from the injury, and going to get back to his old self. They are playing Kansas City this week, which is the 28th hardest running back matchup, so I do have a little bit of worry there. It's just why he's not ranked the number 1 running back this week, but overall, you're not too scared about playing him. I think he'll have a great week. And then the last guy in this tier, one of the best running backs so far this year, is going to be Travis Etienne, and honestly, he could be at the top of this tier. It's just the fact that they have a tough matchup against New Orleans on Thursday night this week, and also we're not totally sure if Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing, but with how Etienne has been playing this year, I'm not really going to be too scared of him, but this game could get a little bit ugly, which could hurt his fantasy outcome, but regardless, he's going to be a stud no matter what every single week for this year. And then onto my tier 2, my running back 4, I'm going to have DeAndre Swift here, who has just been absolutely dominating this Philadelphia backfield. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. He's been a little bit more involved in the receiving game, so there's just a lot of things that are really going well for him this year. And now they're going to be playing Miami, which has been a middle of the road run defense, but it should be one of the highest scoring matchups of the week. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for DeAndre Swift to get a lot of yards, have scoring opportunities. Should be another good week for him. And then in my running back 5, I'm going to have Josh Jacobs here, who has been an interesting case because he has been very valuable for fantasy, but he hasn't really been that good for the NFL. Like, if you watch the games, he doesn't really seem like he's the same guy he was last year. Overall, this offense also isn't as good as it was, but he's still getting so much volume that he's been valuable for fantasy. And now this week, they're getting the Chicago Bears, which has been the 4th easiest run defense this year, so it should be a spot where Jacobs can continue to dominate. And then the last guy in this tier, I will have Raheem Mostert here, who is another guy that has been balling out this year, and with Devon Achane out, he's just getting more and more opportunity. Again, had a dominant week this past week, but they are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, so that is one of the toughest run defenses in the entire NFL. They're actually ranked 30th out of 32 teams, so that's a little bit scary, but this offense is just so good, and they are so explosive that you're not really going to be too worried about it, but my expectations are a little lower than they have been for him, but I mean, still top 6 RB, so nothing to really worry about there. And then on to my next tier, my running back 7, I'm going to have Bijan Robinson here, who actually has struggled the past couple of weeks so far. And now they get Tampa Bay, which is a 23rd ranked run defense, so they're pretty good against the run. And Bijan is somebody who can normally overcome these tougher matchups, but the past couple of weeks, the offense hasn't looked that great, and he hasn't been that efficient in the run game. He's still getting enough volume and enough work in the receiving game where he's going to be solid every single week. And he obviously has a talent to overcome any of these matchups, but at least right now, we can't totally guarantee it. So I still think he'll be solid, but I got him here my running back 7 this week. And then after him, I'm going to have Saquon Barkley here, who this is another guy that's pretty tough to rank because he's coming off an injury, and he actually did look pretty good last week. Really struggled most of the game until the very end where he had a couple big runs. And we also don't know exactly right now if Daniel Jones will be back or not. The offense was, honestly about the same with Tyrod Taylor, so I'm actually not too worried about it. But I still just don't think he's fully healthy yet. And they're playing the Washington Commanders, who have been a kind of tough defense. They're 19 out of 32, so not a super tough defense, but also not an easy defense. So I think Barkley should be fine, but I'm not having those top 5 expectations for him right now, just given the situation the Giants are in. Then after Barkley, we're going to have Isaiah Pacheco here, who has really started to come into his own the past couple of weeks. Last week, he didn't even score a touchdown, and he had 15 PPR fantasy points, so that is really encouraging to see. When you have 15 points with a player who doesn't score a touchdown, that's always really, really good to have for your team. And now they're going to be playing the Los Angeles Chargers, who are the 10th easiest matchup for running backs, so it should be another spot where Isaiah Pacheco can continue to ball out. And his snap count has gone up every single week, and I think that's only going to continue, or at least maintain where it's at right now. So I think that this is his backfield, and he's just going to keep getting volume every single week. And then up next, I'm going to have Alvin Kamara in here. He hasn't been super efficient necessarily so far for fantasy, but he has been getting so many opportunities that it has made himself really, really good so far, just getting so many receptions. And I don't really think that's going to change anytime soon. If anything, hopefully he can get more efficient. There have been some people who have been worried about Jamal Williams coming back, but I don't know. That doesn't really worry me whatsoever. He wasn't good at all with the Saints. But the one thing is that they are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars on Thursday Night Football, which have been a really, really good rush defense this year, actually. So I do a little bit of worry for him there, but just based on the volume he's getting, you got to have him in your lineup. And the last guy in this tier I'm going to have is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Again, I kind of talked about this in the beginning. I don't know exactly where to rank him right now just because he is pretty hurt. It doesn't seem like he's going to play this week. And if he does play, he's not going to be 100%, but obviously he's going to be in your lineup if he's on the field. So this is going to change throughout the week. Just come back and I'll let you guys know what's going on with the situation. But for now, I got him right here, my running back 11, but obviously going to be very subject to change. And then on to my next tier, I'm going to have Aaron Jones here, who should be back from injury. They had a bye week, should be fully ready to go. And they get the Denver Broncos, who have been the worst matchup, or I guess the best matchup for running backs. Now that is a little bit skewed because they gave up 8 touchdowns in one game to the Miami Dolphins, but regardless, this is a very easy matchup for running backs, and Aaron Jones is very needed for this offense. They have not looked the same since he's been out, and I think that they're going to want to utilize him once he's back and fully healthy. So I think this should be a spot where Aaron Jones can come back to his early self. Next up in this tier, I'm going to have James Cook here, who's going up against the New England Patriots. They have been the 14th easiest matchup against running backs, so kind of middle of the road, but a little bit on the easier side. He has been a little bit tricky lately to judge because he is a started running back there, but Latavius Murray is getting the goal line work, and Latavius Murray has been getting just a ton of work in general, which has taken away from James Cook somewhat. But at the same time, Damian Harris just got hurt, so he's not going to be there this game. Thank God he's healthy. Like, that was really scary, but really glad to see him healthy. But this is going to allow for James Cook to get a little bit more work and hopefully kind of get back to on track, because he had a really down week in London, but this past week definitely a lot better, but seemed to lose some of the work that he did have, but looked really good when he did get that volume. So I'm hoping against the Patriots this could be another spot for him to kind of get back to himself, hopefully get worked more into the receiving game, because he is a receiving back when they use it, but they just don't use it all that often. But every single week he's going to have a good opportunity because his offense is so good. But they are using other backs. They don't use him a ton on the goal line, so he's not going to ever really have that high-end RB1, but I think he is a high-end RB2. And then the last guy in this tier I'm going to have is going to be Brian Robinson. He didn't have a very good game necessarily. He did have that one reception that turned into a touchdown that completely saved his day, but before that, he was absolutely terrible. And I think the one thing that we've really realized from this team is that the two running backs in this backfield are very, very matchup dependent. So depending on what the matchup's going to be like is really going to determine who's going to be better for fantasy. And this week they're playing the New York Giants, who have not been a good team, might not have Daniel Jones. They're the 5th easiest run defense in the NFL. So I think that this all lines up for Brian Robinson to absolutely dominate this week. So I'm really excited to play him. Obviously, he has failed a couple times in spots similar to this, so it's really game script dependent. I think if this game script goes the way that most of us think it's going to go, then it should be a great week for him. All right, next up is going to be Jerome Ford taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who have been the 11th easiest run defense so far this year. This is a really tricky one because last week was just so weird where the Browns didn't have Deshaun Watson. They had PJ Walker starting, and they were going up against the Niners, who obviously have been one of the best teams, but the Browns look so good against them. Jerome Ford balled out. Kareem Hunt did really good. Both these guys looked really good against one of the toughest defenses in the entire NFL. So given that, and the fact that Deshaun Watson hopefully should be back, but honestly that situation is very weird right now, so I don't know exactly. But Jerome Ford should have another good week against a bad defense. So I'm not really too worried about who the starting quarterback is going to be for this team. Jerome Ford should be the lead back, should be pretty solid. Kareem Hunt got way more worked in, so I think that Kareem Hunt will also be a good play. We'll talk about him later. But just based off what we saw last week, I'm much more excited to play Jerome Ford going forward. Another guy who kind of bounced back, and at my next running back, I'm going to have Ramondre Stevenson, who is taking on the Buffalo Bills, who have actually been a surprisingly easy defense for the running backs to go up against. The biggest issue issue with Stevenson this year, well, a couple of things. Mostly is that the offense has been absolutely terrible, so he hasn't been getting any scoring opportunity, really a lot of opportunity to move the ball, and he has not really been involved in the receiving game until last game, where they finally got him more involved in the receiving, and it worked out a lot better for him and for the team. Ezekiel Elliott is obviously a part of this team, though, so he is going to get some work. Ramondre is still the lead back there, and we saw last week that he can still be good against bad defense. So I think that going forward, he will be very matchup dependent. This is a good matchup, so I expect for him to be solid this week. But obviously, some of that high upside that we had in the beginning of the year for him, that's just not going to be there. So we got to move on from that, but still a decent play. The next guy I'm going to have in here is going to be Jonathan Taylor, who has just been more and more worked into this offense, and I think that's only going to continue going forward. Now, they are playing the Cleveland Browns, one of the best defenses in the NFL, 27th overall against the running back, so that is scary, and just where this offense is at, where Jonathan Taylor is at right now, you can't really expect him to overcome these super hard matchups. Obviously, when he is a normal self, he can, but right now I'm not really expecting that. I still think that he is like a flex play, low end RB2 kind of at this point, just because there's so little options right now at the running back position, and Jonathan Taylor is always going to have a chance for a massive game. So there's really high upside with him, but also pretty low floor, especially against a really good defense. And after JT, I'm going to have Jahmyr Gibbs here. This is mostly because this is because David Montgomery is hurt and he's not going to be playing this week. Now, we still need confirmation that Gibbs is going to play, but everything seems to be the fact that he is going to. It seemed pretty close last week, so I honestly would be surprised if he didn't play this week. And with David Montgomery out, he should be pretty solid. We saw it once this year, and he got like 85 yards rushing, got involved in the receiving game. We haven't seen this crazy upside explosiveness from him like a lot of us wanted to, including myself. I was all in on Gibbs, but obviously, we just have not seen that so far this year, and they're playing the Baltimore Ravens, who are kind of middle of the road rush defense. I'm really hoping the breakout comes here, but I'm not totally expecting it. But given the fact that David Montgomery is not playing, definitely a decent play with Gibbs here. And then the last guy we're going to have in this tier is going to be Javonte Williams. He did all right his first week back. He was the lead back there, which I think was the main thing that I was looking for, at least. With how good Jaleel McLaughlin had looked so far in his short time, I didn't know how exactly they were going to split up the running back carries, but Javonte Williams seemed to be the clear lead back there. I mean, he looked a lot better. They played the Kansas City Chiefs last week, and he went over 5 yards a carry, converted a 2-point conversion. Just a lot of things, honestly, that made me pretty encouraged with it. So I think going forward, Javonte will be the lead back here. We also got to remember that he's coming off a torn ACL from last year, so he's still probably not fully healthy. So I think that he's only going to improve as the season goes on. And they are playing the Green Bay Packers, who have the 5th easiest rush defense in the NFL. So very excited for him this week. I'm really hoping that he can break out. Okay, and on to my 6th tier, and at my running back 20, I'm going to have Rashad White here. He's pretty much just purely a volume play, has not been very exciting whatsoever, and he is kind of matchup dependent. They're playing the Atlanta Falcons this week, who on paper, it sounds like they're an easy defense to go up against because that's what it has been historically. But this year, they've actually been a very, very good defense. So I think this is a bad matchup for Rashad White, but just given the running back landscape and how much volume he gets, probably going to be in your lineup, but I'm not really too excited about it. And then after Rashad White, a guy that I'm a little questionable about is going to be Roschon Johnson. It does seem like he's going to play this week, but we don't know exactly if he's going to be the lead back. This is a lot of projection for me because I think that he's going to be, especially with everything we saw last week. Nobody really impressed whatsoever, and Roschon was out, but they do have a backup, or they're probably going to have a backup quarterback this week, so I don't know how good the offense is going to be. But a young rookie, explosive, starting running back going up against the Las Vegas Raiders defense, definitely somebody that I'm interested in. So I got him here in my running back 21, but I am pretty skeptical on him. Just, kind of want to see it first, but you might not have that choice. Up next, going to be Alexander Madison, who he's been all right for fantasy, honestly, especially with how it looked. I think he's been a little bit better than the first couple of weeks showed, but still nothing amazing. And now they're going up against the Niners this week, so definitely lowered my expectations on him because he's another pretty matchup dependent guy. And in a bad matchup, not too excited, but he should get solid volume, should be involved in the receiving game where he can definitely be a fringe RB2. All right, next up is going to be Kareem Hunt. Obviously, kind of talked about him a little bit with Jerome Ford, but good matchup for them. They really showed out both last week against SF. That was really Kareem Hunt's first week fully with the team where he had actual time to figure out the play. I mean, he knows the playbook, but actually get integrated back in the offense, get in shape and everything. So I think that his usage is only going to continue to go up. I'm not 100% sure on that, so I can't really rank him any higher. Honestly, this is a little bit high for what I felt comfortable with, but the running back situation is just so gross out there that I think Kareem Hunt's actually going to be a solid play this week. And then the last guy in this tier I'm going to have is going to be Jaleel McLaughlin. We kind of saw it last week where he's still getting a lot of opportunity with Javonte in the offense. Really good matchup for them this week against Green Bay. So I think you can definitely take your shot with him again. And then on to my last tier, and on my running back 25, I'm going to have Zach Moss here. He's been unbelievable for fantasy so far and had a really good week. The first week with JT back definitely seemed to slow down a little bit last week, but overall the whole team just kind of look terrible. And I think that's only going to continue more with them kind of splitting apart where JT becomes more of the lead guy and Zach becomes more of the backup. And playing against Cleveland this week, it's just a really bad situation for Moss all around. So not too excited about him. The next guy in this tier I'm going to have is going to be Jaylen Warren. They're coming off a bye week this week. I kind of think that one of the things they did in their bye week is going to be getting Jaylen Warren more involved. Hopefully a little bit more than Najee. It just has been so much better for their offense. So I'm ranking Warren ahead of Najee now, but I still think that they're both high-end RB3 plays at this point. And after Warren, I'm going to have Zach Evans here, who obviously is taking over for Kyren Williams and Ronnie Rivers, who they're both hurt this week. So Zach Evans should be the lead back there this week. There is some rumors about Royce Freeman getting involved, but Zach Evans has been there since the draft. He knows the offense. He's got young, ready-to-go legs, so I think he could be a surprise play. Obviously, one of the main pickups this week. He could do a lot better than this, but he could also do a lot worse. There's just so many unknowns with him that it's scary to rank him higher than it, but there definitely is a lot of more upside with him than some of the other guys like Zach Moss. And after him is going to be Najee Harris. Kind of just talked about him with Jaylen Warren. I think they're both going to be involved in this offense. It should be about a 50-50 split, but I think Warren just gets the much more valuable touches, is way more explosive with them. So I think that Warren is a better play, but Najee is still definitely in play for some people. And after him, we're going to have Gus Edwards. He got a ton of work this past week, and it seems, at least for the time being, he's a lead back there, although not going to be like a workhorse or anything, but should be getting enough volume where he's definitely flex relevant. And the last guy in this tier is going to be Deonta Foreman. He didn't do much last week until the very end of the game. I think that this is really just the fact that we don't know what's going on in this backfield with Chicago, and so many different things could. But you definitely want to have your bases covered. You can definitely play Foreman, but I'm really not excited about it at all. But there definitely is a possibility where he's the first and second down grinder. Roshan just keeps on playing the same role he already was, and Foreman more fills in for that Khalil Herbert role. We just don't know exactly yet because they didn't both play last week. I definitely wanted to mention him here in the top 30, but he's not someone I'm really looking to try to get in my lineup. But here's my top 30 for week 7 right now. Obviously, some of this stuff is going to change as we get more information and as some different situations kind of get sorted out. So I'll try to keep some updates down below in the comments. If you have any start-sit questions, also drop them down below there. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you like this video, make sure you drop a like on it. It really helps me out a ton. Also, subscribe to the channel. I got content like this coming out all year, so hopefully I can help you guys out. Wide receiver rankings should be coming out soon, so just make sure you stick around for that, and I'll see you guys there. Later.